everybody. It's your man James, Business Quant Treasure, back again with some more video action for you. Today's another trip down memory lane as we find out why it's great. And for those of you new here who don't know what why it's great is, don't know what why it's great is, that's where I take an issue from the past that I really enjoyed. I'll tell you why I think it's so awesome and why you yourself should check it out for your own self there and get some enjoyment in the comics there. Because, you know, as we all know, a lot of the modern stuff is kind of sucking. So time to get some good stuff in here. And so that's what I try to do. I try to point out some good stuff to you guys so you can enjoy it. Today's one that's a little special to me because I've never been a big mutant fan, but I was a big fan of this book when it came out, probably because, it was very early when I was into reading into the reading of the comics when I first got serious into them. And, this was sort of my entryway into a mutant book that didn't have like tons and tons of continuity on top of it. But I'll get into that as we go along here. But I want to thank you all for joining me today and say, if you like what you see here, hit a like down there so you can give the channel some help on the algorithm. It's always appreciated. Also, if you got any comments on the issue I talk about or anything else you want to say, drop it down there in the comments, because I always love hearing what the folks have to say about stuff. And, of course, share out some links and bring in some new people, because I always want to get those subscribers up. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed so you don't miss any of the content that I'm putting out around here. Not quite as regularly as I used to, again, because of health concerns, but still trying to get at least semi-regular for you guys. So we got that going. So I want to thank you all for joining me today, and let's get right on into it. So what we'll do is we'll get me off the screen here, because we don't need to look at me. And then we'll bring up our issue here, which, like I said, if you can't guess, it's a Marvel book. If Mutant wasn't enough of a teaser to you, but here we are. It's Excalibur #3. Now, yes, this Excalibur, like I said, it was one that I really got into because it felt like my X-Men book. You know what I'm saying? I read the X-Men and I read X Factor. Never cared for New Mutants, but I like with X-Men and X Factor, there's a lot of history there, and it just felt a little overwhelming sometimes. I mean, I enjoyed the books. I really liked the X-Men Australia Outback adventure. That was a good one. I enjoyed that storyline, but I mean, it really was very continuity heavy. You could tell even when you're getting into the books that they were that way. But Excalibur felt like a fresh take to bring you in. So like if you were a big X-Men fan already, and you want a jumping on point, somewhere you can jump in and kind of get a feel for the mutants and a feel for some of that stuff, Excalibur was the way to go. And so it became easily my favorite book. And of course, how can you go wrong when you have Alan freaking Davis as your artist? And as you can see right here from our titular cover, we're gonna pick it up right here, Captain Britain versus the Juggernaut, and just that image alone right there says it all. That just and to me, this cover image itself is pretty much indicative of what you can expect, not just from this issue, but the series as a whole, especially the early years. Where there's a lot of it's a lot of action, but there's also a lot of humor involved too. And that was the thing too. In like the Uncanny X-Men, it was a very serious book, not a lot of humor in that book. X Factor, also a very serious book. Not a lot of humor to be found in that book, but this book had the humor. Maybe that's another reason why I enjoyed it so much more than the other mutant titles at Marvel, is because it had that touch of humor that just made it fun. Like this image right here is just classic. Because we all know nothing can stop the Juggernaut, and of course Captain Britain has to learn this the hard way. And I just love it. He's the look on his face, the perfect expression, the footprint on his chest, and there's more of that came from coming out. Just like trying to be the tough guy. Great stuff, Alan Davis. Great artistry. I mean, just so smooth. That's my word for Alan Davis, is smooth, and inked by the great Paul Neary. Again, these two guys. This is my favorite inker for Alan Davis, is Paul Neary. So like two of them together, you can't get better than this. This is like the creme de la creme. So let's now that we've dissected the cover, let's get it underneath the cover and find out what we got going on in the book. And a great way to start a book out is right on top here with some action. Right at the time, you got a prison break going on here, and again, just look at that smoothness. Even in like the blast from the backpack, with the smoke and the flame all mixing together. I mean, it's so smooth. It's so I don't know. There's like a verve to it. I don't know what it is about Alan Davis's work. That's just, like they said, these smooth lines. the curves. There's like a softness to it, but yet it doesn't feel feminine. You know what I'm saying? It's just really great, you know. And so we got our gang here showing up to do a breakout, and of course it doesn't quite go the way they planned. You know, when you break into an empty cell and then you're surrounded by the constabulary, I don't think that's a plan that went to plan. And so they knock out the lights, and then you can see. I love this. Just to just there's all this blasting going on in the dark, and nobody can see anything. I just love that. It's hilarious. See, again, like I said, there's the humor in this. We got a great action sequence, and yet there's still humor involved in it. They end up in the room where the Juggernaut is being kept. And again, I love this stuff right here. Perhaps, Mr. Marco, we can come to a quid pro quo accommodation. Speak English, lady. I ain't no Einstein. Bad enough you limeys talk so funny. You help me, I help you, cretin. That's simple enough, and there it is. I just love it. Just even among there is no honor among thieves. You know what I'm saying? It's that the bad guys, they don't like each other. That's how bad they are. And again, just this is definitely like in the vein of I think the British humor, British style humor, where it's subtle, but yet it's still there, and you get what they're saying, this whole thing about how speak English to a woman who's actually from England. He's in England and he's telling her to speak English. That's what I'm saying. I love the play on words that Claremont brings there. So as happens, they let loose the Juggernaut and use him to escape, and also some other ne'er-do-wells who are in the prison take it as their exit cue, and I just, again, here's the Juggernaut. Live and learn, soldier boys. Can't stop the Juggernaut with guns. Can't stop me with tanks. You can't stop me with anything. And then bang, right there. Here it is. Our hero shows up. And this to me is the best page of the book. Like if I could own a single page of art from the book, this is the page I would want to own, and you're going to see why. He goes, nice punch, cute suit. You the local good guy? I'm Captain Britain. Figures, pleased to meet you. This is as far as you go, Juggernaut. Do tell. You've done enough damage, so why not be sensible for once and save us both any grief by calling it quits and returning to your cell? Make me. You're determined to be difficult. Nope. It's just, I got places to go and things to do, pal. And you see this hit. That says Captain Britain is smacking up on him right there. And he goes, you want to get in my way? Pow! One punch. That's your problem. He's like in the ground. Like he's screaming scraping through the ground. He hit him so hard. That is hilarious. I love this. See, again, this is what I'm saying. This is what was kind of missing in some of the other X-Men books of the time, I think. Was this kind of fun play right here. You got Captain Britain just going to town, hitting him 1,000 times, and they're going to probably even barely feeling it, and then just in one punch, and he knocks him like a mile away from the prison. That's just hilarious. This is that classic British humor. I know Claremont isn't British, but maybe working with Alan Davis rubbed off on him or something. Maybe he started watching some Monty Python in anticipation of writing the series. I don't know what it was, but man, this is just some funny stuff. I love it. Like I said, if I could own a single page from the Excalibur series, this is the one I would want to own. You will never find anything better than this. This is awesome. And again, just look at that great figure work by Alan Davis. The perfect shading on it from Paul Neary. Like I said, this is why I thought they were like the best team ever. This is why this is my Excalibur team. It's Claremont, Davis, and Neary. You can't top that. So they Phoenix shows up, asks him if he needs help. Of course he doesn't, because this is Captain Britain. He's and she even says, men, as stubborn as sometimes as they are stupid. You gotta love it. The battle of the sexes in between the battle of the superheroes. You gotta love it. And then she talked with Shadowcat, who's then waiting for her batch of bad guys to show up, and here they are. They're on the run. They've stolen a car, and here's Shadowcat. And what happens? I love this. Hi, guys. I'm Shadowcat. Mind if I phase your car? And she just phases the car, and they all come flying out. Again, see, look at it. Action with humor. You're going to see this as a recurring theme in not just this issue, but the series as a whole. And, so they all go down and they start shooting at her, gun her. And she goes, trust me, you guys can't hurt me. On the other hand, my pet dragon Lockheed can fry you where you stand. And it's, boom, and it's over. It's over that quick. I love it. And then, of course, then we get to Nightcrawler. We get to see him in action here. Just, Phoenix asks him if he's having trouble. And he goes, I really thought I'd give these stalwart worthies a demonstration of why the manly art of self-defense is called the sweet science. And how sweet it is. And again, I think I love that the playfulness. I love the playfulness of Nightcrawler here. This is the character that I know. This is how he was always presented, in anything I've read, where he's got like a flamboyancy, a je ne sais quoi, a swashbuckling soul, and then he really shows this here in these great shots. And he just look at all that great action. Clunking the heads together, kick to the face, elbow to the rib, elbow to the breadbasket, and then it's over. And it just shows you again how when it comes to these are superheroes, so against normal people, it should be like this. This is exactly how a fight between a superhero and a bunch of normal humans would go. And I like that was shown this way. So then we got Megan shows up, trying to help out, and she sees Captain Britain not doing too well, so she goes in to try to help out, and again doesn't seem to do too much. But then, now she's taking. And let's look at that face. I mean, always it beautiful, but oh my God, look at the anger in that. Look at that the scrunchiness around the nose. The Alan Davis getting those little fine details, and the perfect lips. I mean, just. Out of anything of the characters I've always been impressed with how Alan Davis does lips on both men and women, because you can see here, like when Captain Britain's, you can see, it's got that, little bit of, you can tell it's sticking out, whereas hers got the softness you expect in a female character. He always does great lips. I've always noticed that about Alan Davis's work. So what she do? She draws her power from the earth. She says, my power, villain, is drawn from the essence of Mother Earth herself in whatever manner or quantity I require. And, and here it is. You can see Captain Britain's even taken aback. Glory. Megan's growing. She's working on size and power. And I mean, it's like, wow, it's pretty awesome. And then, but before anything can go too far, even here, look at, I don't like hitting girls, but I don't run from fights neither. So there it is. And so they got to stop her. And so they, Shadowcat phases her through. So she can't do anything. And then there's Phoenix. Hi, I'm Phoenix. Guess what I do? Oh, no. Oh, yes. You see, Juggernaut exaggerated earlier. No physical force can stop him. Unfortunately, he's ever so vulnerable to psychic attacks. And Phoenix, in addition to being a telekinetic, is a telepath of the first order. And I love that shot, or the perfect shot. I mean, the look on his face, the grace of Phoenix, like hanging there with the flaming wings bending around, and just it's so just it's feminine, but not effeminate. You know what I'm saying? And it's the power of the Phoenix right there on display. And again, just a beautiful shot. And after that, it's over. The fight is over. And and then we find out, poor dear never knew what hit him. I just love it. He just laying there with the arms out, like just totally knocked out. That is hilarious. I guess that's it then. Sad the fight is over, catching? Of course not. Sort of. Yeah, it's just I'd rather be trouncing bad guys any day than move. And life can be tough, but things might not turn out as badly as you think. You're right. They'll probably be worse. Again, this is kind of like the team dynamic you can see here. You got Megan in Captain Britain's arms. You got Shadowcat grousing, and the optimist, the eternal optimist that is Nightcrawler. Just the perfect encapsulation of the team dynamic right here in one image. So then we get a side jaunt here, a little subplot with the character of Widget here, this little creature who will play a much bigger role later on in the book. You can see here he helps set this up here. He has the ability to help people to transverse dimensions, and and this guy ends up in one across the Omniverse world shake, and Opal One Sator greets her visitor with a smile. And so, like, again, this is all set up for future stuff right here. This is the subplot that begins right here that will be taking place in later issues. So now we finally get to the big move. You can see here, it's right here in Captain Britain's lighthouse where he lives, you know, and she gets into figures. Captain High and Mighty Britain gets the nicest room in this dump. It seems only fair, catching. After all, it is his house. He's welcome to it. Why do I have to move here anyway? And then I love this. This is a great thing that I didn't think about this at the time, but as I've reread this book, I'm like, I don't know why this doesn't happen more often in teen books. He goes, we've been through all that. It's too dangerous for innocent bystanders for us to be based in a city. Now think about that. How, you know, you got here they are out in the middle of the ocean here in a lighthouse at the edge of the water, because they know if villains attack them, that no innocents will be at risk. And yet in New York City, you got Avengers Mansion in the center of the city. You know, you've got the West Coast Avengers compound in La Jolla, just down there, you know, just right there where anybody can attack, and you're surrounded by, you know, businesses and homes. You know, no one's ever thought of this. Like, why would the heroes want their base to be right in the heart of a city somewhere where it's surrounded by potential collateral damage, not just of, you know, destruction of buildings, but like innocent people? You know, the X-Men in their school, you know, at least made sense because it was out there in Westchester, and they were separated from people. So if they attacked the school, it's only the school that's going to get damaged. But like Avengers Mansion, that's like right in the city. Did the heroes never think of this before? So I just love this moment right here. You know, it's a small thing. You wouldn't think it's a big thing, but it's a really big thing that he's, you know, talking about how superheroes, you should think if you were a superhero. We got to be away from the people, because with the danger that we attract, if villains want to attack us, you know, we can't be where innocent bystanders are, because we're just putting them at risk. Great stuff. Like I said, just, you know, it shows you the milliseconds of genius that Claremont puts into this book, even with all the fun. And so then they show up with all their stuff, and they start to unpack it, and they complain about the weather because it's going to change, you know. And then we get more classic fun here. You know, and so he, you know, Captain Britain comes in with the last box. He goes, where should I put it? And he goes, and Nightcrawler's like, anywhere there's room. And he goes, how about here? And he puts it right on top of these boxes. You see marked fragile, and just, and he goes, my software. He goes, Kitty, I'm sorry. It was my strength. I didn't realize the box was so heavy. And she's thinking, buffoon. It's okay. I understand. Accidents happen. Those were the programs I wrote with Doug Ramsey. Now they're as dead as he is. And again, this is, if you know the New Mutants history, you know what this references. But again, a very, you know, a sort of a tender moment, but also a funny one. Again, this is, again, the humor of the book. The humor. And so she takes off, and he tells her, you know, about the weather. And he goes, not to worry. It's only a summer shower. It'll be over before you know it. And then that was Tuesday. This is Friday. Things haven't improved. You'll love it. And so here's Nightcrawler jumping all around, getting a little stir bug. You know, he's saying how the place seemed big when he first got there, but now it seems like there's hardly room to move. And then, you know, here's Captain Britain, and tying one on and having Nightcrawler bouncing around isn't helping him out there. He goes, some of us don't share your passion for crack of dawn calisthenics. So he goes to go to the bathroom. And again, this is something that anybody, if you've ever had roommates, you've ever had to live with somebody that wasn't just you, you know, this is, you know, here it is, the bathroom's locked. And he goes, how long will you be? She goes, I'm having a bath. Well, there's just this one, you know. That's why we worked out a schedule, remember? I waited my turn. If you slept through yours, I'm afraid you'll have to be patient till I'm done or I die. It's just the look on his face. You know, again, just something else you never think about, you know, like with the Avengers. How many bathrooms are in the Avengers Mansion? You know, you can kind of wonder these things. When you're reading a book like this, you start to wonder how many bathrooms there is in the Westchester school with the X-Men. How many bathrooms are in the Avengers Mansion? Could you imagine something like this happening, you know, in Avengers Mansion, because they only have one bathroom? You know, Cap's in there, and you got Iron Man doing, hey, yo, let me out of here. I got to get in there. You know, it's hilarious. Again, I love the humor of this book. It's just so much fun. And again, the team dynamic, you can see this is the beginning of the series, so they really haven't gelled yet as a team. You know, when they were in the battle, you saw how they kind of like you know, carved things up and worked according to where their strengths were with their abilities. But you know, there's more to being a team than just doing the fighting, and that's what this is showing you, is how like they still haven't really gelled as a team yet. You know, because there's still so many conflicting personalities and so many conflicting, you know, idiosyncrasies among them. And then all of a sudden, you know, just we got something happened. The fire. What happened? He goes, Lockheed and I were trying to fix a hot toddy, tell Kitty over the flue, but Lockheed slightly overdid the flame, so we got stuff on fire. And so of course they all come down. Phoenix jumps in, you know, she goes, leave that to me. Phoenix, wait, no. Do you have the slightest notion what I just did? Absolutely. I threw away your whiskey. I'm not sure I like your tone. Fine. I'm positive I don't like your drinking. Brian, are you really aware of how much you consume? As in lots? I can handle it. And then Megan, I hope so. It's just that it hurts so much to see you turn to those bottles instead of me. And again, just look at the expression on her face. You know, it says it all. You know, and you know, as someone, you know, a little personal here, but you know, my father was an alcoholic, God rest his soul. So I can really empathize with this whole situation right here. You know, I see what the team is saying. You know, they're concerned with him, you know, with his drinking, even though he has superpowers, which probably offsets at least some of the effects. Although, as you saw earlier, not all of the effects. They're concerned for him. And how does he react? Like a petulant child, of course. Perhaps it's because they've proven themselves truer companions than any of you. We're trying to help. You're meddling where you have no right. I'm a grown man. I can take responsibility for my own life. He goes, and then she screams for him not to go. And he goes, I won't be judged or dictated to by anyone. This is the thing. And so here's Captain Britain. You know, he's really not gelling with the team. You know, even though he's invited him into his home for their base, even though he is sort of the de facto leader of the team, and yet he's really not taking the leadership role. He seems to be almost resenting it. And we can see what this does to Megan, how it hurts her so badly. And then, you know, Nightcrawler tries to assuage her. Listen to me. If there's one thing I know above all others, no, it's that a person cannot be judged by their looks. Only their heart and soul. And yours, dear Megan, are as lovely as the sunrise. If some people are too blind to see that, it's their shame, their loss. I mean, and so again, now we start to see, you know, this right here is the beginnings of what we call a love triangle, because in later issues you're going to see the closeness between Megan and Nightcrawler grow, and this is where it all begins. So again, alluding to the future here, you know, we got the whole thing going on with all this. So then we keep going forward, and they're still moving in. You know, I guess you know, here it is. It's what is it? So they're talking about what just happened. She goes, that man is pig-headed sometimes. Nothing at all like you. Again, you know, so give me a break. And she's like, you know, you shouldn't ask for what you're not prepared to give. You know, Brian doesn't exactly make that easy. Is that a reason to give up on him? No, I guess not. If he comes back, I'll give him a chance. I hope he does. Yeah, me too. Faith, hope, and charity, Kitty. Mix them with a little luck, and presto, maybe you've got yourself a miracle. You know, but then again, as always, the pessimist, Kitty, you know, easy for her to say, perfect body, perfect powers, never gets sick. Well, I have to focus every ounce of concentration just to stay solid long enough to unpack my stereo. You know, this is the team dynamic. It's all this character interplay that has always been such, you know, the big stock in trade with Claremont. You know, she goes, I miss my room, I miss my roommate, I miss the X-Men, I even still miss my folks being together. You know, I want everything to be the way it's supposed to be. Why can't life be like electronics? You plug things in, you turn them on. You see, again, the simplicity of a child's thinking, you know, because she is only about like 15 here. And so she's a very young person. So this is, again, the feelings of, this is probably why the book resonated, because I was probably right around Kitty's age when I was reading the book. So this is probably why it resonates with me so much, is because we all know those feelings, that alienation, that feeling of like, things are changing too much, too quick. We don't want things to change because we like them the way they are. We just gotten used to this and now it's changing on me, and you can see she's really struggling with this. So she goes to investigate, why the power went out. He said, no problem, Catherine. He said, the smug, supercilious superhero called so-called know-it-all. The lighthouse power supply is more than capable of handling any demand you place upon it. Yeah, so long as your equipment runs on batteries. You see, even when he's not there, she's still talking down on him. That's just hilarious. Such a teenagerish thing to do. So she's going around and she gets down to where the power is, and then what's this? Another Lockheed and a alien version of Kitty? What is this? Well, we're gonna have to see, aren't we? Then we cut back to Captain Britain, who's talking to his friend Courtney Ross, and and this is where we really get into why Captain Britain reacted the way he did earlier. He's talking about that she's saying maybe he should just give up being Captain Britain. There's no law saying he has to be. And he goes, I tried that once, and my sister was maimed as a result. And if I remained true to my responsibilities, Betsy wouldn't have joined the X-Men and died with them. So again, there's some guilt in his mind, and he tries to tell you, I may have infinite potential. What's lacking is desire. You mean you won't take charge of your life because you can't be bothered? Brian, that's obscene. Courtney, you don't understand. I know the duties imposed on me better than anyone, but that's the point. They were imposed. I never had a real choice. I don't know anymore when they'll ever end, or even if. Is it wrong, Courtney? Am I a coward to want a life that's just a little for myself? Or is the shame in being afraid to make the choice? You see, and so he's torn up inside because he has all these powers and responsibilities that are on him. There's the old adage, some are born to greatness, others have greatness thrust upon them. In Captain Britain's case, it's very much the latter. All this stuff was thrust upon him. He never asked for it. And now he's trying to struggle with how to balance it to the point so that he can do what he's responsible to do, his duty, and yet still have enough room to have a life for himself, something for himself that's it's just his. It's not him having to be a hero, or him having to be an icon, or him having to deal with things and situations he doesn't want to, but to just have a piece that is his life for him, the way we all want that. And so you can see now why he's so, why he drinks now. He's going to get a little of the insight into why he has that problem, is because it's probably the one thing he feels he can control, even though we know he's not really controlling it, but he thinks he is. And that's why he does it, because it's the one thing. I control this. I can decide whether I'm going to drink or not. I can decide how much I'm going to drink or not. It's mine to control. It's my life. And that's what this all is. So again, it's like real deep stuff here. You wouldn't think in a superhero book you'd have something that they can touch on how any of us would feel when we have things put upon us that we never asked for, how it can interfere with our life and where we want to go with our lives. And yet that's exactly what Captain Britain is dealing with. But of course, things can't just stay that way, and he even we even she even brings in Megan. She goes, you were happy in your new life. I thought you were happy in your new life, especially with your lady friend, Megan. She's a lovely creature, devoted to me. Sometimes I fear too much so, but I'll never be able to talk with her the way I can with you. Again, remember we had now we had Megan, leaning on Nightcrawler, and now here you got Captain Britain leaning on Courtney. It's so now our love triangle is becoming like a love rectangle. And then of course it gets interrupted, by Rachel. She goes, I wouldn't have interrupted if it weren't important, but we had another weird happening at home. And so he tells her, I got to go. She goes, a teammate, a telepath. I'll introduce you sometimes. There's trouble, Courtney. I'm needed. Here's the choice you asked for. Must you go? They're my friends, my responsibility. I'll be in touch. And he takes off. And so see, there it is. There's the duality of him, is he doesn't want to leave, but yet the responsibility. He's responsible. They're his friends. They're his responsibility. You see how this is how he sees them. Is I got to be responsible. I'm the team leader. I'm the one that's housing them. I'm the one that's brought the team together. I have to make this work. I'm responsible for them. And so we head back, and she's Kitty's telling him what she saw. It was there's nothing out of order here now, just like the last time when it happened to me, to Kurt. And he goes, and then Brian comes in. Perhaps then, under the circumstances, we should consider relocating. But no one wants to do that. I hate to admit it. The place is kind of growing on me. I want to find out what's going on. And then, the apologies. He asked Megan to forgive him for the way he acted, and he goes, I'll try to make it up to you if you'll let me. And he goes, if everyone is willing, comrade, I suggest we put these trials and tribulations behind us and give our new home and new fellowship the decent chance that both deserve. Are you with me, Excalibur? And then there it is, the classic, all the hands together, and this is like really where they really start to build the team. But this was a great issue, a lot of great character stuff. You saw some good action in here. You saw some great humor in here. It's just, this is truly the total package for me. This is what the mutant books should be like in the Marvel universe. And again, like I said, just Alan Davis's art. I mean, just look at that shot right here of Nightcrawler. I mean, come on. You can't put too much emphasis on just how talented Alan Davis is. I've loved his work since I first saw it. Just weird, from the weird stuff like this, to the emotional stuff like this, to the action stuff like this. I mean, he can do it all. There's nothing he can't do well. And again, Paul Neary, the perfect anchor for Davis. I was so sad when I heard he passed away a couple years ago, because it means I could never see the Davis Neary team anymore. But yeah, definitely Excalibur number 3. Like I said, and this page, the humor. You cannot top this, no matter how hard you try. This is just perfection. Mwah! Chef's kiss right here. You cannot get better than this. So yeah, Excalibur number 3, again, you could say it lived up to the cover. The cover lived up to what was underneath it. So I got to love it for that, if nothing else. But yes, Excalibur number 3 from 1988, classic stuff, classic mutant mayhem and hijinks. And again, like I said, with great humor and great characterization, and that's really what makes this book stand out to me from the other X books of the time. Is it has that flavor that none of the others do. And, and like I said, I really appreciate it above all else, the humor in the book, the very British style humor, which again, considering the source here, is not something we should consider to be much of a surprise. But I definitely enjoy it. Definitely check it out. If you can, go get a copy. You'll be laughing along with me, just like you did here. Good stuff all around. And there we have another one in the books, another why it's great, and down in there in the records. And that'll be about all for this. But I want to make sure to remind you to check the description section down there. Check out all those links so you can hook up with me and see what I'm up to. I'll have some more stuff for you very soon. Of course, I got Halloween coming up. I'm a big lover of Halloween, and so we're going to have some stuff for you for that. And hopefully there'll be some fun surprises in there for you. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Remind you to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll be back with some more stuff for you very soon. And until next time, take care.